You don't need more hours in a day. What you really need is to understand where those hours are going. In a fast-paced world of hospitality, time doesn't just slip, it evaporates. Between last-minute stock runs, rota gaps, endless WhatsApp messages, 5-minute favors that swallow an hour, and the constant interruptions that feel small but derail everything, you can lose a whole week without ever moving forward. And then there's the stuff that you thought you delegated, but somehow you're still doing it. If you're constantly busy but never truly progressing, this one's for you. Because once you understand where the time's going, you can start to take it back. Hi, I'm Trevor. I run a multi-award winning restaurant and cocktail bar called Oko Rocco, and I coach hospitality leaders who carry more than most people ever realize. I didn't come from hospitality. I built the business from the ground up, learning everything in real time. And for years, I told myself that the stress, the chaos, the constant pressure, that was just part of the job, part of the lifestyle, and a badge of honor. Late nights, constant staff messages, the weight of decisions that no one else could make. Fine, that's the role, right? But the truth is, it wasn't fine. I was doing 60 to 70 hours a week, barely keeping up, and still lying awake at night with that spinning head feeling of what have I missed? And here's the worst part. If you'd asked me back then to break it down exactly how I was spending my time, I would have guessed, and I would have been wrong. I blamed the obvious things: emails, staff, drama, supplier issues, stock orders, prep lists. But when I finally sat down and did my first proper time audit, I realized something far more dangerous was happening. It wasn't the big jobs that were draining me. It was everything between the big jobs. The micro decisions, the interruptions, the constant context switching, the small asks, the invisible work I hadn't really delegated, even though I'd convinced myself I had. I wasn't drowning in deep work, I was being shredded by 1,000 tiny cuts. And the only reason I caught it was because I stopped to track it. This isn't a video about traditional time management. I'm not here to talk about planners, Pomodoro timers, or color-coded calendars. This is about awareness, because in hospitality, your time doesn't just vanish because you're unorganized. It vanishes because the job is relentless, the demands are constant, and no one ever really teaches us how to protect the person doing the leading. A proper time audit doesn't give you a bigger to-do list, it gives you clarity, and clarity gives you choices. So in this video, I'm going to walk you through what a hospitality specific time audit actually looks like, what to track and how to track it without overcomplicating it, what patterns to watch out for, and how to use that awareness to actually change the way you lead, not just manage time better. But before we dive into the how, I want to offer you something that could make this process 10 times more powerful. If you're watching this because something in you knows you're stretched too thin, start by finding out where your energy is really going and whether your leadership is supporting you or draining you. I've created a free quiz called the Business Wellness Quiz. It takes less than 4 minutes and it gives you a personalized score across the 4 key areas of the Lead Well approach. Look inward, establish rhythm, align your energy, and direct your clarity. I have a whole video on this. You can see it in the top corner now. You'll get a clear breakdown of where you're solid and where things might be quietly wearing you down. It's not just a personality quiz, it's a tool that shows you what your leadership style is actually costing you. So before you keep running on empty, take a moment to find out where you're at. The link's in the description, so grab your score and come back when you're ready to dive in. Step 1, track your time without judgment. Let's start with the basics. For 5 to 7 days, write down what you're doing, when you started, how long it took, and here's the kicker, how it felt. Because in hospitality, time isn't the only currency. Emotional energy matters just as much. A 15-minute task that leaves you drained for 3 hours isn't just a 15-minute task. It's a leadership tax. It affects how you show up for your team, how you think, and how you lead. This part isn't about being perfect. It's about being honest. You can use your phone notes, a notebook, a Google Doc, whatever works for your brain. The goal is to capture reality, not your ideal day. Include the mental stuff too. Planning tomorrow's shift in the shower, worrying about a team member, rereading the same supplier email 3 times because you're too tired to respond. If it takes up space in your brain, it counts. Don't filter, don't judge, just write it down. Step 2, identify your energy leaks. Once you've got a few days of data, start looking for the patterns. But don't just ask, where am I wasting time? Ask, what's costing me energy? Because that's where the damage is. Some tasks drain you more than others, some people pull from you more than others, and some parts of the job feel fine until you realize they've left you snappy, flat, or running on fumes. Look out for these common leaks: repeated interruptions, work you thought you delegated but you're still doing, endless team questions, emotional labor that you're carrying without noticing, high effort, low impact tasks like complex orders or dragging admin. These aren't just productivity killers, they're temperament changers. They make you less patient, less creative, less present. They push you towards burnout even when your hours look manageable on paper, because this isn't about time, it's about toll. Step 3, spot the bottlenecks. Spoiler, it might be you. This one's uncomfortable, but it's where a lot of breakthroughs happen. Once you've tracked your time and looked at the energy leaks, the next question is, where is your business waiting on you? I'm not talking about ego here, I'm talking about actual workflow. Ask yourself, are menu updates delayed because no one else can finalize them but you? Is the rota last minute because you're the only one who knows the labor budget? Are decisions stalling because your team don't feel confident acting without your say-so? It's easy to look around and think the business is bottlenecked by others, but very often the biggest constraint is us. And again, this isn't about blame, it's about visibility, because when you can see the bottleneck clearly, you can build around it. You can train, you can delegate, you can systemize, or you can remove yourself from that junction entirely. You can't scale your sanity without facing the friction points. Step 4, name the invisible work. Here's the part most people skip. Not because it's hard, but because it's hidden. Not everything that drains you has a time slot. Not everything you carry shows up in a calendar. Some of the hardest parts of leadership are the things that no one sees, not even you, until you stop to name them. Start writing down the invisible labor, the team member you're emotionally supporting behind the scenes, the 3 a.m. cash flow stress spiral, the silent mental to-do list that rewrite itself a dozen times a day, the quiet fear that the place will fall apart if you take a proper day off, the self-pressure to keep everyone happy every hour of every day. This is the kind of work that never ends and never gets acknowledged. It builds up in your body, it crowds your thoughts, it burns you out faster than 16-hour shifts. But once you name it, you can start making different decisions, because invisible work doesn't disappear on its own. It just grows heavy until you collapse underneath it. Writing it down is the first step to letting it go. Step 5, choose 2 high impact shifts. You've done the hard bit, you've tracked the time, you've noticed patterns, you've acknowledged the invisible load. Now let's talk about change, but not dramatic overnight change. That's not sustainable. I want you to pick 2 high impact shifts, just 2, that's it. Because change that sticks comes from reduction of friction, not adding more pressure. Here are some examples. Blocking 1 hour per day for deep work, no messages, no meetings, finally handing a task over that you've been half delegating for months, creating a simple FAQ doc for your team so you stop answering the same questions 12 times, removing a high maintenance, low margin menu item that drains more than it earns, scheduling a 30-minute reset break before service every day, adding a Friday planning session that sets up the next week before the chaos hits. These are small moves with big impact. They signal to your team and to yourself that your time matters. And they start to reverse the pattern, because the more energy you save, the more clarity you gain, the better your leadership becomes. Let's pause for a second. I want you to think about something. How many of the things you currently accept as just part of the job are actually negotiable? How many of them are inherited habits? How many are self-imposed pressures? How many are simply unexamined? This is what time auditing unlocks. Not a rigid schedule, not a perfectly productive list, but a shift in mindset. You stop reacting, you start choosing, and from that place, you don't just manage time, you lead through it. Here's what no one tells you. Your time didn't disappear. It didn't get stolen by laziness or lack of discipline or a failure to prioritize. It got used by people, by habits, by systems, used by a culture that rewards hustle and punishes pause, used by a belief deep down that if you stop for too long, something will fall apart, or someone will stop trusting you, or the team will lose momentum. And if you've carried that belief for a long time, I want you to know this. It's not your fault, but it is your responsibility. Because once you can see where your time is going, you can choose where it should go next. And that's when everything starts to change. This is what real leadership looks like. It's not just about output or consistency or showing up first and leaving last. It's about making decisions from a place of clarity, not crisis. It's about protecting your energy so you can protect your team. It's about knowing the difference between being in control and being in charge of everything. That distinction matters, because the longer you carry more than you need to, the more your leadership suffers. You stop thinking creatively, you get short-tempered, you delay big decisions because you're too bogged down with the little ones. You become the bottleneck you're trying to solve. And worst of all, you begin to lose your sense of why this all started in the first place. That's what this time audit is here to protect. Not just your schedule, but your sense of self in the middle of the business that you built. Because if you're anything like me, and like most of the owners that I coach, this started with a vision, with purpose, with an idea that you believed in. But over time, the weight of day-to-day demands starts to blur that. Suddenly, you're not steering the ship, you're just bailing water to keep it afloat. And that disconnection doesn't just affect you, it affects your team, it affects your customers, it affects your family, the energy that you bring to work, the decisions that you make under pressure. The time audit isn't about time. It's about getting your grip back on what truly matters, and then using that insight to lead with more intention and less sacrifice. When you look at your week through the lens of the lead well approach, you stop asking, how can I fit more in? And you can start asking, what am I building and who do I want to be while I build it? That question is everything. Because when you lead without looking inward, you lose direction. When you lead without rhythm, you lose your footing. When you lead without aligned energy, you burn out. And when you lead without clarity, you carry too much of what should be shared. You don't need a new app or a new planner or a better brand of hustle. You need to see your business as a system that should work with you, not wear you down. And the audit helps you see where it's already working and where it's quietly working against you. If you haven't taken the business wellness quiz yet, do it now, because awareness is the first step towards a real change. And this quiz gives you more than a score. It gives you a mirror, a clear, honest look at how you're leading right now. You'll see your strengths and you'll see your vulnerabilities. You'll see the parts of your leadership that are solid and the parts that are asking for support. And you'll leave with a starting point, because from that place, everything becomes easier to change. No more guessing, no more carrying it all alone. Click the link in the description, take the quiz. It takes under 4 minutes and it could shift the way that you lead from this week forward. You don't have to live in chaos to prove you care. You don't have to carry everything to be a good leader. You don't have to keep pushing through just because you always have. What you need to do is a way of leading that leaves space for you, that respects your time, your energy, your role as a human being, not just as a person keeping the lights on. This is what sustainable leadership looks like. Clarity, boundaries, rhythm, calm. And the strength to lead in that way doesn't break you. You carry a lot and you deserve the tools and the support to carry it well. You matter too, don't forget that.